you see right behind me is Santa Cruz Railroad 3. Santa Cruz Railroad 3 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1876 and is the 3972nd steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 440 American type steam locomotive. Also, the locomotive is named Jupiter. This locomotive was originally used for the Santa Cruz Railroad in Santa Cruz, California, and was used to transport freight and passengers from the town of Santa Cruz, California, to connect with the Southern Pacific Railroad in Watsonville, California. The name Jupiter was a common practice for American railroads of the 19th century to name their engines after Jupiter, king of gods, and other mythological figures to attract attention. Thus, the engine wouldn't be confused with the engine of the Central Pacific Railroad that pulled the ceremonial train to the driving of the Golden Spike in Promontory, Utah in 1869. Also, in 1883, the locomotive was retired from service on the Santa Cruz Railroad, and the railroad was purchased by the Southern Pacific Railroad, and the Santa Cruz Railroad roadbed line to standard gauge, and converting the engines to wider gauge would be costly and uneconomical, and the railroad elected to sell off the inherited engines and used its own standard gauge engines instead. This locomotive was sold to the Guatemala Central Railway, who dropped the engine's name, but it kept the number. In 1904, the Jersey City, New Jersey-based United Fruit Company consolidated the Guatemala Central as the Guatemala Northern, and then the Guatemala Western and Ocos Railway into the Guatemala Railway, and it was renumbered 61. In 1912, the Guatemala Railway and Salvador Central Railway were consolidated into the International Railways of Central America, and the locomotive was renumbered 84. In 1928, it continued to haul fruit as well as a small number of passengers along the railroad's branch lines in the northwestern part of the country until 1960, when it was retired from working in Guatemala. It was then purchased by O'Roy Chalk, who was a New York entrepreneur and DC transit operator, in 1964. Also, for an unknown reason, he wanted the locomotive to be displayed as part of a children's park he was developing in Washington, D.C., and the locomotive was shipped to be displayed. The locomotive drew attention to the curator of the Smithsonian Institute, who had taken particular notice of the engine's year built. John H. White Jr., who was the curator that time, convinced Chalk to donate the engine to the Smithsonian as part of their upcoming bicentennial exhibition of 1976, and it was carefully restored that time. The engine was cosmetically restored to its as-delivered appearance and placed on display in the Smithsonian's Art and Industries building in 1976 for the exhibit, which was a recreation of the displays of the Centennial Exposition of 1876. The engine was displayed in the building until 1999, when it was relocated to the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. It was initially placed beside Southern Railway Steam Engine 1401. The engine was relocated again in 2004, though it remained within the museum's building. When the exhibits were reconfigured into the America on the Move exhibition, which featured the engine displayed as part of a diorama recreating its arrival in Santa Cruz, California in 1876. Today, it can be found here on display at the Smithsonian Museum of American History, where it is seen on display today.